Thank you very much, all. Before we start, I would like to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, to tell us what you do and what you're passionate about. Let's start from that end.
Hi, I'm Ben Russell. I work for Omnium International. I'm currently working on the pre-contract services for Dubai Hills Estate, a residential master plan development, which is ongoing for a few years yet, so lots of VE to be done.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Fadi Kobersi. I work for CCS. I'm head of customer success and taking customers into a new level of value engineering and implementing project control with ERP and accounting.
I'm Mason Zaidi. I'm representing ALEC. I'm basically the head of technology, and basically my passion is transformation, that is organizational and digital transformation, and I love building exciting teams.
Good afternoon. My name is Nan Jian. I'm representing Autodesk. I head up the manufacturing and construction sectors across the Middle East and Turkey. And I've been in the engineering technology sector for the past 20 years. My passion is the effect of technology on the future of work. So how work would evolve given the new advancements in technology.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nathan Thomas. I head the BIM division for Shapoorji. Been a passionate driver for BIM and very much living it. It's nice to be here to discuss about value engineering and technology, what technology can offer to enhance the VE process itself.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Wallet. I'm the regional director for Trimble Buildings. Been in the industry also close to 30 years. And from a passionate standpoint, digitization and transformational technologies related to construction.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nan Jian. I work for S&T. We've been in this region for nearly 35 to 40 years. I myself in the Middle East from early 90s. From no technology, and we are advanced in technology now, and I head the technology division. I love implementing technologies for construction, and especially in the interior design field.
This is very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's a good mix, like with previous panels. We've got people from the industry, from different parts of the industry. We do have some software providers and technology providers in here. I don't really want to follow discussion points line by line. What I would like to start with is just a request for us to focus more on value engineering, or how do we bring additional value to clients, to designers, to end users with our work in the built environment. So just if you could, if we can start maybe with the technology part first. How do you think, or how are you actually helping the industry with the VE process? How are you supporting the VE process with your technologies? Again, I'm technology agnostic, I'm software agnostic, and I do encourage the best of breed solution. So I'm not saying just fix on one supplier and work with them forever. Just for CCS, Autodesk and Trimble first, if you could answer this question.
Okay, so I'll go first.
All right, so I think as technology providers, our role is to enable our partners with tools that allow them to design better. And this is not specifically within the value engineering process. The objective ultimately is to enhance the engineering and design process overall. And we see it starting to happen. So I think some of the technologies that came up today were around generative design or machine learning. And I know some of these are still in their infancy when it comes to construction, yet we see some adoption happen. And we see massive enhancements in terms of designs that deliver better value at a lower cost, because the way of designing these buildings or these assets was different. So it wasn't traditionally a human being driving a software tool It was more on a partnership between a person trying to explain to an algorithm what the end outcome should be, and then the algorithm providing many feasible and viable solutions for that design problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So from the standpoint of value engineering and solutions that we're looking to provide, so holistically, Trimble is providing both hardware and software solutions. So our main aim is to digitize the process for every stakeholder in the workflow. So that could be the very early conceptual phase through to, you know, how do I manage my machine on site effectively to save on fuel, or how do I manage my labor force on site as well. So we're trying to connect also with other vendors in the market so that we can have interoperability across all the different areas of construction. So really from a value engineering point of view, there's been tremendous discussions this morning, and I think Nikki started earlier about cost saving, and it's not about cost saving, and we entirely agree with that point. It's about adding value to the process itself so that you can get to site early, construct economically, save money where you need to save money. If we look at the industry as a whole, the productivity index of our industry as a whole is about 1% globally for the past 2 decades, whereas manufacturing industry is, I think, around 3.6%. So we have a lot to do in the industry itself to, you know, change the way that we do work.
Adi.
Yep. Basically, CCS tried for years. I mean, technology and the value in construction industry just picked up recently, and it's still 1% of construction companies that use or spend money on technology. It's picking up, but what CCS tried over years is to link data with the business value. Having a platform where you can benefit from technology to have all those information in one place. You can share the information between your site office, your operation guys on site, and the back office. And from a different perspective, we try to link all that, and that's the missing link. When we talk about value engineering, it used to be about cutting down cost. But the proper value engineering is how we can enhance the keep the functionality by reducing the cost. And the new trend by having an integrated systems in the entire organization is where you look at the cost-benefit ratio, not only at the net present value. So, and that's what the trend tried by CCS over the years. And yeah.
Very good. Ben, can I ask you how you usually, in your practice, how do you come up with the most value-add solutions for your clients?
Well, we utilize technology all the time. It doesn't matter if it's quantity takeoff or analysis of data or even benchmarking. We typically use the technology to give us the information that we need to present to the client. The main thing is we look at first our elemental analysis. So our elemental analysis against a benchmark project. Why is this building not costing this building? Is there a reason? Is the substructure deeper? Is there more rebar in the concrete? So we use it for that way. And then also, secondly, we use technology to present that information into a usable format so that allows us to meet with clients and explain how the differences are against a benchmark project. And then particularly for the use of technology, we're getting squeezed and squeezed. Every time we need the cost plan done in 2 days, we need a cost plan done in 3 days, and where technology comes into play is that it really benefits us from giving us the information without a manual operation. So, you know, what is the floor-to-wall ratio? What is the efficiency of the building? Where can we improve things at the early design stages so that we can work on those topics or, you know, items where we could potentially target VE. So it's fundamental in our day-to-day job, particularly when it comes to cost planning.
Very good. Well, I like to touch upon the global squeeze because everybody wants stuff done now and as cheap as possible. And this is just an incentive for all of us in the supply chain to cut corners. Just now moving on to MySum, I'm just wondering in ALEC Technologies, what kind of solutions do you use to improve the workflows and maybe not necessarily provide value engineering services as such, but assist with such practices?
Sure. So I'll take a step back before we get into the systems we use, but I'd probably like to ask the audience, how much or what percentage of Excel do you think is used in your daily work? And if you think that it's the right tool to do what you're doing today? Can we have a raise of hands? The audience don't think they use Excel at all. It's one of my favorite software.
Can you reformulate the question?
Sure. So the question is, from a let's say from a usability standpoint, let's say using business systems, how much of percentage Excel plays versus the business systems that we use today in our own environments? And Excel being, you know, an amazing tool. On the flip side, it doesn't cater for your data integrity, and therefore something that's very dear to us, and I think the industry, which kind of is left behind, is something that we call the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning Tool, and it's a very old cliche word that's been going on for years, and no one's been able to change it. But I feel that from an industry, an AEC, I would say, that would be architecture, engineering, construction. I feel even today we are lagging behind that from the ERP perspective, because if you go out there and you look for systems that can actually, because if you look at ERP, it's your core. That's where the data starts from. That's where your finance talks to your projects. That's where your information sharing, starts from as well. So it's such a critical component, but for some reason, it's left behind for either the first implementation we started didn't go well, or we picked up the wrong tool itself. And it's something that I would like to emphasize on is, if you look at our industry today, and you look at the players out there, the big vendors, they don't cater for our industry, unfortunately, and the smaller players, they're too small, and they don't understand the importance of, let's say, integration or interoperability with other systems, which is a key aspect as well. And I feel that's something which is of keynote today to pick the right ERP system, and the selection of the ERP system is basically the starting point. And I've taken a step back and gone into the ERP conversation because I wear the technology hat in the company, is because we talk about all these fantastic things that can work really well, but when you think about how will this all work together, no one really has a clue. And if someone has a clue, then I'll be very interested to have a conversation with them, but sorry.
I agree with you. I think just the earlier panel said that someone's been dealing with the same problems for 40 years. It's that reluctance to change, to utilize something that potentially is new to a business or is new for the purpose that they want to. And you mentioned Excel. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone. I think every cost manager out there uses Excel because there may be an element of not trust issues, but to understand the data, the cost consultant almost feels like he has to input that data into a usable format that he can churn out the results he wants. So if there is a tool or a software, I think a lot of cost consultancies use software to potentially 60% or 50% of their overall potential, as rather than a holistic, this gives us everything we need, and we can do the reports, we can do the benchmarking, we can target VE,
Yep.
all within the software. I'm guilty of it myself, and I'd love to implement a system where it gives us everything we need from a cost consultancy's perspective, particularly concentrating on value engineering solutions.
Sure.
I would like to step in. I'm a civil engineer, and at the same time, I'm a techie person, same as MySum. I love developing. I write my own codes and softwares to do my business. Excel is an amazing tool, but doesn't fit what the industry need. But what I want to point out is there's a bit of gap between what engineers want from the ERP and what IT wants from ERP. No offense to IT. I'm counted most of the time as an IT person. But people want the fluffy stuff, and some people want the basic core to run their business. And yes, the gap is closing, but we still have a big gap. So that's where the step back that Maisam was talking about. You need to analyze, does that ERP fit your business? Does it do what it's supposed to do? And if you look at it from a different perspective, that's value engineering.
That's correct. So things like, how would finance talk to your projects? Yeah. Do you have sub-ledgers? Do you have subcontract management? Do you have contract management with the client? Generally, these things are missing in the ERPs out there, or if people are doing it, then they're not doing it the way a customer would like to do it. So this was I know we're focused on value engineering, but as Fadi said, ERP is such a core to value engineering, and it's kind of left behind because we talk about amazing stuff and things out there, robotics and AI, which is everyone wants to hear about. But this all stems out of data. And this stems out of either structured or unstructured data. And usually your ERP is structured data. But that's where I think the focus has to go back to. And then you look at possibilities out there of adding emerging technologies to your ERP system.
So if I may step in here, I think part of the reason why for the past 40 years our industry still does the same mistakes is that the industry by definition is fragmented, right? And this reflects on the quality of data that we have. You've mentioned machine learning, and machine learning is probably one of the better tools out there to look at unstructured data and start extracting insight. Because it's all about the insight that you can take out of this data that you collect across 40 or 50 years of project. And I have to say, there are some tools now that have started documenting what happens in terms of issues across the globe, and then maybe highlight risk on similar projects because of, for example, I'm using this type of pipe on a project with this type of soil that goes to that use. So if this subcontractor on a previous project or so have done something wrong, it's highlighted to me automatically. And this is the sort of insight that as a human, I cannot look at many, many sources of unstructured data and extract. And here's the role, I think, of these emerging technologies that you speak of.
Naji, if I may add in here. I think you're talking more about the difference between data and information. Sure. Right? So in the industry, we have such a huge repository of information, or let me correct myself, such a huge repository of data that very rarely do we get the right information. Everybody knows everything, but the perspective of a question when asked with the right question does not seem to have the right answer. You tend to get multiple inputs into it, but you rarely get the right answer to the question that you're looking for. And this predominantly could be because we look at technology independently and we don't consider the people part of it and the process part of it. And that is which is very essential. You did mention about the ERP, you did mention about how you're using it from pre-construction, taking it on board. But if you look at value engineering, the real value proposition is the end user, right? So if I'm building a hotel, and if I don't get the value that a hotel is supposed to provide, rather it's more like a residential apartment, the whole purpose of value engineering is lost there. The value proposition, when you put that together with the people part of it, with the process part of it, and technology offering it to make it a little more seamless between these partners, and bringing in the true transition between data and information would be the key part to getting value engineering right. So I can just take an example of something that I've seen recently, an early integration with the client on a building project. As a contractor, we were able to bring in certain perspectives to the client which helped them communicate with the designer saying, guys, this could save this much money to the contractor, which in turn would give me a cost saving if you designed it in such a way. Otherwise, they would have gone with the same perception, same perspective, and it's just that contractor's experience coming on board at an early phase. Now, imagine if instead of the contractor, it was the FM operator in that place. He would be able to say, hey, you know what, I don't want to be setting up hundreds of access panels, rectifying things, rather if I have it placed in the right spot. And that's the difference between data and information. And that's what we need primarily in the industry, and that's what is key to getting value engineering right. It's not about reduction of cost, but it's about adding value to the end user or to the client. Because at the end of the day, we all are playing with, or we all are gambling with the client's money. So if you look at the TOTEX, the operational expenses are much, much higher to what is initially invested by the client to build a job. So the aim of the industry should be to value engineer the operational expenses so that the best value is given back to the client once he or she, or once as an organization, they take over the project. We talked about PPP in the last session, wherein some of the very strong points that were brought in was the FM operator being in first. Etihad Rail mentioned about shallow, so the FM operator being early involvement of the FM operator. I think this is what we should really be looking at as an industry. How do we get the end user involved in the first day, wherein they're able to give value? I mean, I'm not sure. I think there was somebody in a previous session where a doctor was put in with a simulated environment, and the first thing he said is, I don't want this there, I don't want that there, in a hospital project, because he is the end user. The designer designs it the best way possible, but if the end user does not get what he wants, the design is of no value. And that's my take on how you should really look at value engineering as a proposition to the industry.
Very well said. Can I ask Venu now, how do you guys do V on your projects? I mean, at the moment, the two most popular ways to procure projects here are design and build, and maybe the most popular is design bid build, a traditional approach. Where does your V input stop, or do you do V even after you're awarded, although you're on a on a lump sum contract where your fee is fixed? Do you keep doing it, or you only then focus on making your works more efficient, minimizing waste?
So I come from the belief that technology is disrupting our industry. I think that's not noticed by many people, and there's a couple of discussions we've had over the last 2-3 years in different forums that the industry is getting disrupted. So our disruption comes by, you really don't know, there's a traditional life cycle and then there's a new modern life cycle. So we see that happening in our experience. So though we've been, if I could use the word, flirting with BIM for quite some time, and I think people know that even now there is only 11% of the industry married to technology. Yeah. So that's what they say, and that's their own data. So we'll go through that data in my next speech on how that technology and to what extent construction is. So I come from that belief. So we have changed now, and we have very exciting discussions with our end clients. And when we say the end client, we also talk about the sort of developers, because they fund it and they want the best results out of it, provided they are owning the property over a long period of time. So I don't know what's there in this part of the world, but now I deal with India and Middle East. So India has now gone out to the concept of a GMP, to answer your question. So that's the guaranteed maximum price. So we've gone on to the guaranteed maximum price. We as contractors are taken on board after the concept is done. So once the concept is done, then we are taken on board. I mean, obviously through a tender, but it's discussed. And then we as a contractor then provide the construction documents to all the supply chain. So that's where I think the end developer gets a lot of value. And we've noticed this, and I think somebody mentioned in the previous, that we need to have proper documentation. Like, this is the specification we need. At this specification, what can we get? So we've been involved in a couple of projects in the region where they've specified the product. I know the functionality is specified, and then say you need to go to this product, and everybody knows, and even the CEO of this large development said, I know I can get this for 40% cheaper. But it's because they've not involved in the earlier process the whole supply chain in what we call integrative design approach, which I'm sure some of the consultants use and we use. So we believe that the industry is being disrupted, the model, and so we get value engineering for that. We see clients coming to us, hey, this is what we want to do, and there are tenders going out saying that the guy, as a main contractor, you come on board, you take the BIM model from the designer and then create from LOD 100 till you hand it over to the facility management. So we are there along with the full chain of life cycle of the construction. So that's where I believe the industry is heading. And we've had intensive discussions with, and I know Autodesk, in other places we've had intensive discussions. So where Autodesk is also talking of design till manufacture, and the gentleman spoke about AI in design. So there's so much design AI coming into it. So we are talking about from the beginning till we send it to the factory. So we as interior design manufacturers does all our design, and the design we take from the designer, we send it out as G codes to the machine to manufacture. So we've seen a lot of savings in time. Of course, we invested in this quite early, 2011, 2012, into the cloud. So any guy join a company, you give him a laptop and he's having access to all sort of facilities for that. So I think the industry is getting disrupted, and as you said, normally I have to give it to a cost consultant and he will say 5 days, I will take out the QS. Now, I don't need him. Once the designer designs, I've got the list, and then I've got my database telling me that's the approximate price, and these are the equivalent flooring prices which you can change. So we are heading there.
Okay, it's an interesting view. Yeah. Now, speaking of IPD, what will be each of you, your position in terms of working as part of an integrated team? And of course, having your fees, some of you are contractors, some of you are software suppliers, just being there and being paid a fee to be there and to feed information, to provide your know-how in how that project can be delivered quicker, better, and more cost efficiently.
I can take it because we are doing 2 projects like that, and so there is a certain fee paid for what you're going to do during the design process, and there's a certain fee paid for what you're going to do during the construction process.
If you get it.
No. Whether you get it or not, so they want to continue the process, right? So you can't, and as I said, BIM is still flirted about, not much in marriage. So it's we call this, and I would like to use Autodesk's term, a digital twin. So before we give you the building, we've already built the building inside the computer. When I say built, I mean tile by tile. So we built the building already inside. So if they don't want it for a new contractor to come and take over and manage with what he knows here, so we have let's say a digital project manager who handles the digital twin, and a real, I wouldn't call him a project manager anymore, but a construction manager. So we are hired till the end life cycle as a main contractor. So it's not that they can send you out easily. And it's sort of a fixed margin. We say, hey, that's the price, you get 7%, and we tender it along with the developer. So along with the promoter of the project, he comes with us and he says, so we call in the supply chain, the right supply chain. We call it an open format book. I don't know whether it's much practice here. It's an open format book. We find the best value to the best specifications. And in case we save money from our GMP, then we sort of have a share with each other. So
okay, now that's good. I was just wondering, sometimes you have a design team or integrated project delivery team that works in the early days, but they're not necessarily awarded the next stages. Whenever you have only 2 parties, like client and contractor, already together, each of them has the impression that the other one is getting better value and they're losing. Again, this is changing as well.
That's changing. I mean,
it's changing, yeah.
We feel that's changing.
What do you think, Paul?
I'm extremely behind IPD. I've seen these projects even when I was based in the US. Very successful, very successful. Everybody's around the table, and if we link that with value engineering, that's exactly what you're doing. Everybody's at the very outset of the project able to discuss with the owner what are they wanting out of this particular project, what their design, their concept, their design requirements are, working jointly with the designer and main contractor. And really those IPD projects tend to be the ones that have the success in terms of, everybody's making a profit.
Yeah, yeah.
More often than not here, then we're seeing, I think it's very prevalent in the industry here, which is, it becomes in litigation after the project and people are fighting or trying to make money on variances, and that's not the way it should be. So IPD really is the way that we can turn the industry around and start to make, good productivity choices and less wastage, better design, but also, design that building for its future use as well. So this mentioned earlier about operations and maintenance, and that's not been touched on too much today in the different forums, the panels. But we can link that to the Green Building Council, we can link that to LEED as well. So what are the main criteria that the owners are looking for? In terms of the region, there's got to be LEED specification or green. What is the, in terms of the region here, we're looking at the happiness index, right? So there's another one that I've come across just recently, which is the WELL building standard. And the WELL building standard is bringing in parameters about air usage, the happy environment that we're working in, water usage. So it seems like I'm getting a bit off topic here, but essentially you are designing the building for the longevity. So if we take projects, iconic buildings, right? So if we take the Burj Al Arab, Burj Khalifa, we take some of the new iconic buildings that are coming up, they're developed so that they are making revenue over a longer period of time. So if you're designing in the short term to save cost, then ultimately you end up redesigning that building or rebranding that building. A lot of hotels, what happens is they only have say a 10-year outlook and they know they're going to rebrand it. You look at Raffles Hotel in Singapore, that's an iconic building, it's been there for, many, many years. So the revenue that building makes is tremendous. So IPD should involve a lot of these different aspects when we're talking with the owner in terms of how do you want to make revenue out of this structure that you've built. And that's one of the critical elements, I think, in the Middle East, is that, we've got these fantastic structures. How long are we going to utilize those buildings for the future?
Adding to what Paul said, being an academic myself, we've done a lot of research on how IPD tends to look at the industry, and a lot of the examples that we've looked at shows really unbelievable margins in terms of earnings for the parties who are involved. And you'd see that the first point that you'd look at when you're looking at an IPD framework is trust, and then how much you're willing to put forward an open book in front of everybody that's involved. And then the results that we saw in terms of the 3 projects that we studied, where you're looking at almost 3 months as an average in saving for the client in terms of opening those projects up earlier. And be mindful that these were all hospital projects that we did our study on. And when we looked at it, so you're giving your client early access to his project. You're letting him start having revenues 3 months ahead of schedule. So in reality, you're actually giving him so much bonus to, or more than what he signed up for at the beginning. And the way IPD projects were structured in those frameworks were that they were profit sharing as well as loss sharing. So if at all they came up with a point where they lost money, that also was shared with the client. And wherever they gained money, that also was shared with the contractor. So they kind of built a trust environment and less of an adversarial, let's say, I don't want to call it FIDIC environment, but more of a, you know where I'm going with this. So it's more of a trust environment that was built, and that really helped those projects perform better. And it's I mean, I wish that we would have more such projects in this part of the world, but it really is about trust. It really is all about trust.
Naji, do you want to add anything?
I think, I completely agree. I think the limitation to IPD, taking it back to the subject of the panel, is not technology, because I think technology providers were the first to get on board IPD a long time ago. So it's sort of what we preach. I think it is the structure of the contracts and the trust that you speak about that is the determining factor on when IPD actually kicks off properly in the region.
Maisam, do you want to add anything?
I think,
We're a big panel, so we're running out of time shortly.
Sure. So last comments would be, I think what you've talked about, trust and collaboration is very important, because we're working towards one goal. If the client's happy, then obviously we are happy. If the client's not happy, we can't be happy. But from a collaboration standpoint, ALEC actually invests in collaborative platforms where we can actually meet contractors, other contractors in the ecosystem, subcontractors, and the client on sort of one platform, and have discussions on this, open discussions, because this is very important, especially with the prices going up every year with regards to the cost. It's just, if you think about it, the kind of construction that happened years ago, which was probably more challenging at that time with less technology available, turned out to be a lot cheaper and faster. Whereas today we have a lot available in terms of technology, but we've gone slow. So we need to figure out what the root cause is for this, and that will come out of collaborative discussions, trust, because people need to open up and tell their problems. And I really like the fact where you say client is the focal point.
Yes.
And when we talk about things like digital transformation, how many times would you actually go to the client and say, what do you really want? We would assume that the client wants this because we know them really well. But it's really important that we sit with them and say, what are your expectations out of this project? And how do you want it to be panned out at the end from your customer's standpoint? One other thing that I want to add on is with countries and regions that they're actually ahead of other ones, especially Scandinavia, the gap between the academia, the industry, and the government, or the collaboration between them is at a different level to where we have it here today. And this is a known fact, but the work towards it is very slow, and it has to develop, because use cases come out of that, investments can go into it as well, whereby you can, leap and do the 10x agile that we want to do. Whereas if people work in their silos, it doesn't really happen. And we all need to work collaboratively, which I think is really important from a value engineering standpoint as well.
Very good.
Yeah, I just want to add another point here. We did talk about value engineering, but I think the key to getting value engineering right is getting value management right. And that would be the first step. So we see that more often, we see everyone moving towards value engineering, but rarely is value management given a thought, because that's what sets up your value engineering. So the difference or the major gap in the industry is we rarely see value management workshops, but we see value engineering workshops.
Well, this is again linked to the problem we have with BIM, where we're looking at two sets of standards, US and UK. Yeah. The US call it value engineering, the UK adopted it in 1990s, and they call it value management. And their idea is that value management looks at the whole thing,
yes,
and V looks into more detail.
Perspective.
But again, we're looking at two different territories, jurisdictions, and it's the same problem we have with BIM, with level of definitions and the POS documentation.
I think the key there is open technology and open format. So yeah, obviously standards that you adopt, are mandating how you want to work on that project, but as technology enablers, we should be agnostic to those standards in terms of we just make the technology talk to various different solutions. And whatever standards you adopt, that's your choice. In terms of making the technology talk to each other and pass information, we mentioned the digital twin. You know, that's essentially what we're doing with BIM, is what we've designed on the computer. You know, we want that to replicate out on site. And we want that to be the same. As soon as it's different, that's where the cost starts to come in. So we try and shorten, you know, that gap. So IPD is, you know, essentially it's following that open philosophy. And you know, we are trying to drive 3 core items here. One is constructability. So we want everything to be constructed on site as much as possible as it's been designed, because, you know, the costs are not taken up then. We want as much content. So we talk about operations and maintenance, or you want to recost the project at any particular point in time where we started out this particular discussion. And connected. So we want everybody that we need to be as stakeholders to have open connections into that project, no matter where you come from.
Very good. Can I just, we're running out of time. I'll ask you at the end if you want to add anything, Fadi.
It's a bit difficult to add after what all the guys have said, but I want to address the topic about what we're talking about. We can spend hours talking about value engineering, but to address how technology has affected value engineering in our days, I will say it's every fear that my colleague just listed. It's building that hotel on the computer and then we want to match it on site. It's the data versus information, how we're going to analyze. So we have a lot of information, even now. Look at every company. They have Excel spreadsheets or paperwork. They have the information. It's about linking and analyzing those information. It's about the BIM concept. It's all of these things. So technology had brought us to today, but where do we draw the line? This is the different mindset we're facing now. The reason is, I'll give an example, is one of my clients are doing an R&D about drone, which they successfully done. It just fly on top of the project and scan the excavation and the progress. So what used to be done in maybe a week is now being done in, what, few minutes of flying. Now, you will find different mindset about people trusting technology, not trusting technology. That drone is now being tested to fly inside the building and get the progress on a daily basis. What is that? Do we trust computers or not? That's going to be the question for the mindset. Second thing is, can we depend on it? What is the impact on the human interaction in the site? And 3 is, where do we take the next level?
I think just to add to that, like you say, do we trust the technology? So if we, from a cost consultancy perspective, if we've got a model that spits out all the quantities, do we trust those quantities? Do we have to sense check those quantities? How do we sense check those quantities? We have to measure it again, or we have to do bulk excavation measures or the like. So I think there is definitely a reluctance to trust the technology, particularly when that trust equals a cost impact.
No, I agree. It's now we're seeing more tenders in the RFP. They're asking for analyticals. So they want analysis. Why do you think this is going to take that much time or that much cost? And that's the value engineering and technology together, what they have introduced to this industry. Before, we had no idea how much time will it take to finish the entire project, because we used to look at every component separately. So technology measured that. Value engineering is analyzing it and saying, okay, that's the, instead of saying assumed productivity, now we're looking at the history, and this is what the ERP is doing. It's closing the cycle of information sharing between what is budgeted or tendered or estimated versus what's actually done on site. So we're getting correction and going to an accurate figures by combining that cycle, going back and using the new figures into the next project and going on. So we have a history analysis. You can do, each company will take its own type of analysis, but at least we have a history. Instead of saying we assumed that figure, now we know it's that amount. And it's allowing us to the bottom line Paul was mentioning, we're getting not just the cost of the project, we're looking at the benefit versus the economical, the energy saving, and those benefit, we're converting things which we used to look at good to have into a money value, adding it to the project. And
thank you very much, gentlemen. If you have any closing remarks, about 5 to 10 seconds each. If not, we'll just take one question because we are running out of time.
I just have one point to
Sure.
make. And I'm just talking from the AEC industry perspective. And thinking through these processes and discussing it with many thought leaders, you finally arrive at the conclusion. And if you see, AEC industry occupies, in terms of, let's say, the labor management, or let's say the number of people employed, a huge amount. And in terms of value engineering and energy saving, again, it matters a lot to the countries. So thinking through this process, I've always landed up at the fact that important is legislation. And I think we mentioned this in the BIM summit last time, and now, and I think legislation is very key, and it's very important if we take away that the government agencies should legislate to say, hey, IPD is a must, or sort of these sort of
Government
technologies
mandates, yeah.
is a must because it saves valuable resources for your country.
Perfect. Thank you, Venu.
Yeah, sorry. I don't No, I agree. And, if we look at the RTA, for example, that's a fantastic example of a government division that's, paving the way forward in terms of the BIM standards and mandates. And, they're developing that even further. We're good to see every government agency also, pushing and driving forward. And I think that is happening. It would be nice to see more, because that would then kick everybody up the proverbial to change the way, we're working as in our industry in terms of, our construction industry. Dubai is driving forward tremendously in smart technologies all over the place. And it will be, soon we'll have cars that will drive themselves on the road. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us to change in the industry and align ourselves with that futuristic vision.
As much as I welcome the application of technology and probably an improved application of technology, there's a fine line of how much we want technology to affect what we do today. And I think having a mandate is good, but really studying how much of it can be practically applied is very important. For instance, I get on a job and the first day I get asked, can I have all the quantities for doing my procurement, and which I can't give them on the first day or on the 10th day, or it would take me a certain amount of time to get there. So understanding the technological barrier to making things practically happen is key to making all of this work efficiently and effectively. So I think we're in the right process. It's just a matter of time till the industry matures itself to reach an understanding between what's practically applicable, what's theoretically applicable, and what the industry really needs and wants.
Perfect.
I think my takeaway was how many times the word trust came up during the conversation between entities and an IPD project, or when it comes to trusting technology. And I just want to say that this question in parallel industries like manufacturing was the question that was being posed 35 years ago. And if I compare these two industries now in construction, where we have in the GCC over 50% of all project resources go to waste, versus manufacturing, where the number is significantly less than 10%. I don't think trusting technology or adopting technology is optional going forward. I think it's going to accelerate. People's jobs will change. They will not disappear. They will evolve. And as an industry, it's only by adopting more technology that we'll be able to deliver more with less resources.
My last comment would be, take a step back, plan better, improve on your current processes, and while you're improving on your current processes, like my colleague said here, improve on your current processes, and that can be looking at the manufacturing industry as an example. So how do we actually reduce waste? At the same time, you look at a bimodal way of doing things, where you look at how you can improve things by doing it completely differently. But we cannot achieve that by we have to take a step back and plan better, because that doesn't happen. Because everyone's like, ooh, amazing technology, run after that. And we keep doing what we're doing. So take a step back, plan better, improve your current process. At the same time, look out there what's happening with regards to innovation, emerging technologies, and possibly you need to look at two different streams, because you can't apply emerging or new technologies on your, let's say, your flagship projects immediately. Unless that's from a PR perspective you want to do that. But realistically, you won't probably get the returns straight away. So you need to run both those streams parallel until your new focus area becomes your current process, and then you look at further ideas.
Perfect. Fadi, closing
I answer
remarks.
myself when I raised the question of how much do we trust technology by saying, yes, we should trust technology. I agree with Naji. It's going to enhance people's day-to-day work, but we need to look at two things. One, it's not about what's good to have in technology. It's about the function of that technology to our business. So that's, again, that's value engineering. Two, no matter what technology we're using, it's always going to analyze and predict. At the end, it's going to go back to human interaction. We have to define yes or no. Any software, data in, data out, but it's the human interaction. The logic's going to tell us, yeah, that makes sense, and that's no. Our brain is the biggest technology, and it's going to remain. So I'll just kind of tell the mindset of who are against technology, don't be afraid. Use it to your benefit, but use the function.
Perfect. Final thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I'd wrap up and say I agree with that. We should be utilizing more technology for everyone to do their day-to-day job. And as such, I think design coordination, particularly the importance of design for value engineering, is getting that information right in the first instance, allow the time to undertake value engineering, particularly as a collaborative effort. I think we all agree that it should be a collaborative effort, and then utilize the technology to not only do the exercise, but to report back and give options to our clients.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we're running